Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm going to tell you a little bit about my topic brief. The title is The Effects of Special Education on School Communities. I'm Karen Kramer, and I'm currently working at Tannock High School as a teacher and principal. As our school year came to an end, I went over a checklist with my superintendent, and included on the list was an accounting of records kept by our special education teacher. I needed to be sure that they were locked up safe for the summer, and this got me thinking about the legal aspects involved with special education. I learned through our guest speaker during one of our classes in June that principals are also responsible for following up on IEPs and making sure that all of the goals and things are being followed as set up in the IEP. At that point, I realized that there was a lot that I needed to learn about special education in order to be effective as a principal. I had a lot more responsibility than I realized. I decided to focus for my topic brief on learning more about how the special education laws affect the school as a whole community. When Congress passed the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or we know it as IDEA, the effects were felt more by more than just the special education department. The new law created work for all staff members of the school, including principals. As special education students participate in general education classes, teachers need to revise lesson plans often. They sometimes have to alter their teaching methods so that they reach all the learners in their classrooms. For us, in our practice nowadays, we're used to this. This is nothing new for any of us that are teaching right now. But in 1975, there were probably teachers that took this as a little bit of a challenge and thought that this was more work for them. It was probably an adjustment for them. Another impact that is felt because of this law is in staffing in a school. Now for myself, after having had to create a teaching schedule for this coming school year, I can tell you staffing is really a challenge at times. Even in a small school like Tannock, one certified teacher cannot handle all of the students that have needs. We have one paraprofessional who is specifically assigned to the special education department. And depending on the number of students with needs and the varying nature or severity of a disability, a school might have more than one aide that's assigned to the special education department. So this puts a strain on staffing, especially as you have students move into a school. Those numbers can change from year to year. In larger schools, there might be a classroom set aside for those self-contained students, and that classroom has to be staffed at all times. An aide might go to all of the general education classes with one particular student if there are behavior issues or something like that. Say a student with autism that needs constant attention. You might have a student, in my student teaching, I had a student who was deaf. She had an interpreter with her the entire day. She went to every class and sat right with her in her classroom. So there are varying needs, and it can greatly affect your staffing. And as a principal, you have to figure out how you can do it, because the money does not always come to cover those additional staff members needed. The money doesn't always come from the state. It is just something you have to figure out in your budget. As I mentioned before, the principal also has added responsibilities to special needs students. He or she has responsibilities to their parents and overseeing all of the staff members and making sure that the students are receiving accommodations and all of the requirements of their IEP. I also wanted to address what we've talked about, maybe drawbacks or inconveniences that have been placed upon a school. But I also addressed in my paper the opportunities that have come from the implementation of IDEA. Students in the general population have learned tolerance, they have learned empathy, they've learned understanding, and hopefully they've learned kindness. I have seen this with students in my classrooms, students as they work with a student with Down syndrome, or as they work with a student and have patience with an autistic student that's in their classroom that maybe sits next to them at a table and is put in a group with them. I'm sure all of you have probably witnessed this as well. The benefit, that benefit of the inclusive classroom has affected really our whole nation as a whole in understanding students with disabilities better than back in 1975. For my field study, I interviewed my niece Ella, who is a third-year special education teacher in Wyoming. She works with junior high students who have emotional and behavior disorders. Some of the questions I asked her about was the paperwork, and she said it is very time-consuming. But because an IEP is a legal document, she really has to be on her game. She has to make sure that she is following everything that is outlined in the IEP so that the rights of the students and the parents are protected. That's really important. She also said that a benefit that she sees is collaboration with teachers. Teachers work together with her to meet the needs of the students. They're, often as general education teachers, we say, I don't know how to work with a student in my classroom, and we should be able to go to our special education teacher and get some training that we might need to better help our students. There have been many amendments to the original law that was passed in 1975, but 6 major principles have remained throughout those changes, and they are zero reject, non-discriminatory testing, free and appropriate education, least restrictive environment, due process, and finally parent participation. From what I've read, research shows that inclusion in a school is what is best for all students. I believe this to be true. Even if it creates work for all of us, we're here for the students. That's all I have for you. Just some highlights from my paper, and I hope that you've learned something as I've shared these thoughts with you. Thank you. Good night.